So for those who don't know me, I'm Tara. I'm the OpenActive Engagement Consultant at the Open Data Institute, and I'll facilitate the session today. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping points. Aside from the speakers, please can everyone keep their microphones and phones muted throughout the webinar, just to ensure we've got good sound quality for everyone listening. We will be asking all questions via Slido. So if you have any questions, please submit these there. If you're having any issues accessing Slido, please let us know via the hello@openactive.io email address. We'll be monitoring this throughout the webinar, so we can keep an eye on that. We will be recording this webinar, so if you'd like to rewatch it or a colleague wasn't able to join us, we can share the recording afterwards. Likewise, if you aren't able to stay for the whole webinar, but you'd like to ask a general question, you can submit this via Slido and listen back to the recording later. If you do have a very specific question to your organisation that you prefer not to share with everyone, please also send these to hello@openactive.io and we will respond to you afterwards. And we'll have the email address up at the end of the presentation. So the code for Slido is on the screen now. So I recommend, just before we get started, that you open this up so you can ask questions as and when you're inspired to. And I will remind everyone of the code again at the end of the presentations for any latecomers as well. So now we've dealt with the housekeeping, I'd like to introduce this. So first we're going to hear from Richard Norris, who is the OpenActive Programme Lead at the Open Data Institute. Will be followed by Alistair Gray, who is Digital Strategy and Innovation Lead at Public Health England. And then we'll hear from Nish Desai, who is co-founder of IMIN. And we're planning to allow for about 20 minutes at the end, which should give us plenty of time to get through them all. Just before we get started, I'm hearing quite a bit of background noise, so if everyone could just ensure that they are muted before we get started. And without further ado, Richard, if you'd like to start us off.
Thanks, Tara. So I'd like just to talk a bit about what OpenActive is, just to set the scene. I think some of you are aware of what we're doing on the project, but I just want to make sure that everybody's got this kind of base level understanding of what OpenActive is about. So to set the scene a little bit, behaviour change is hard. There's a problem with inactivity in this country, and to change people's behaviour, to get them physically active, that's a challenge. And Sport England and we refer to this thing called the COM-B model, which kind of sets out the different components that you need to change a person's behaviour. So you've got that individual's capability. So are they physically able to do that particular type of activity? Are they old enough? Are they the right gender? You've got the opportunity itself, so that the space, the gym, the route, the session, the class, the thing that the person can do. And you also need to motivate those people. So you need to make sure that they feel comfortable to take part in that activity, that they're inspired to take part in that activity, that they feel like it's something that's for them. And if you get the capability, if you have the right person with the right capability and the right opportunity, and you can motivate that individual, then you can change people's behaviour. And that's obviously a hard thing to do. On OpenActive, what we focus primarily on is the opportunities and the motivation. And so this diagram kind of lays out the two different sides to that part of the behaviour change model. So on the left-hand side, you've got the opportunities, the spaces, the sessions, the classes, the things that you guys provide by and large, right? So if you're a leisure operator, you've got your leisure centres, you've got your classes in there, you've got your sessions in there, you've got your courses in there, and you want to market those, you want to promote those to as many people as possible to get them inspired to take part in those opportunities. And that's where the products and the services and the organisations on the right-hand side come in. So there's a whole range of different things that can motivate people, from national campaigns like This Girl Can, and we'll hear from Alistair on Change4Life in a moment, through to social prescribing tools like I Prescribe Exercise. But equally, there are services and tools that are geared exclusively to people who want to get outdoors, or to people that just want to find races. what we're doing on OpenActive essentially is getting the timetable information, the timetable data, the data about the sessions that you provide, the opportunities that you provide, and we want to help you put that out onto the web in an open format so that those things on the right-hand side can start using them, so they can start promoting and listing what you do. So it's essentially about increasing the visibility to as many people as possible about the opportunities that are on offer. And because that data is open, because it's data that anybody can access, use or share, we think it will lead to a much wider range of services that help motivate people than can currently exist. So what exactly gets published? So first thing to reassure you all, we're not asking anybody to publish anything that's commercially sensitive. We're not asking anybody to publish anything related to sort of participation data or insight data. It's the stuff that's probably already on your website. It's the stuff that's held in your leisure management system. So it's the events that you run, it's the sessions that you run, the courses, and the data about those sessions, those events, those courses is the information a customer wants to see. It's the time that activity is taking part, the price, the location, a description of that activity, so I know that it's something that I want to do. An image of that activity, so I can see that there might be somebody like me and I can get a sense of what it is. Essentially, the stuff that's already on your website, it's already on your booking sites, that helps the customer make that choice. And one of the common misconceptions that people sometimes have is that they think OpenActive is building this kind of centralized database of all this information. So you've got to get your data and put it into this big central pot. And that isn't what's happening. That isn't what we're asking you to do. We want you to publish your own data on your own site. And I've got here an example of how that works. So this is Run Together data. So this is data that's been published by England Athletics from their Run Together campaign. And you can see on the screenshots on the left-hand side that the URL, the link at the top in the address bar, is data.runtogether.co.uk. So that they're publishing their own data. They're not giving us their data. They're publishing it themselves. And this page on the left-hand side has an open license. So it says licensed under Creative Commons CC by 4.0. That essentially tells people that they can use that data. They don't need to ask you for permission. They can use that data and they can start listing those activities. And then on the left-hand side, that's what the data looks like. It's in a format that developers can use and they can put that into their products. So to be really clear, we're not asking you to publish data in a big central database. We want you to publish your own data. This is something that you will have control of, and you can manage yourselves. So hopefully that's clear. And to give you a bit of context about one of the most exciting users of the data, Alistair's going to talk through Change4Life.
Thanks, Richard. So now to introduce Alistair. Apologies, Alistair, we have control of the presentation here, so if you'd like to let us know when you'd like to move on to the next slide, and we'll do that for you. And just a reminder to everyone, if you've got any questions as we go through, please ask these via Slido. The code is D198. Thank you, Alistair.
Thank you, Tara. Hello, everybody. Really great to be here talking to you all today, and thanks so much for all of your attention. I'm really excited as one of the product leads and the digital team at Public Health England about the scale of the opportunity with open data and how that can be used to promote healthy lifestyle changes to a wide variety of audiences. So what I'm going to talk to you a little bit now is a brief introduction to Public Health England, and then also explain a live beta that we've been working on with the guys at the Open Data Institute and I'm in, where Nish is from, to really sort of bring this technology to life and demonstrate how the technology can be used in a live context. So, for those of you who don't know Public Health England, we are an executive agency of the Department of Health, so a government organisation, and our mission really is twofold. The first part of it is to protect the nation's health. So you may have seen people, my colleagues, running around places in hazmat suits whenever there's a sort of health crisis around Novichok or on park benches or anything like that, Fortunately, I'm not involved in that part of the organisation. I work on the Improve part of the house, which is basically where the social marketing directorate sits, and we have a very long and illustrious track record over the last 5 years of running big national multi-million pound, multi-channel promotional campaigns to raise awareness around specific issues around health through our brands, and to also promote healthier behaviours and lifestyle changes by driving people to effective services and interventions, some of which we own, and increasingly some of which are owned by partner organisations. So one of our major brands is Change4Life. This is a brand that speaks to children and young families. And its mission in life is to reduce childhood obesity and the sort of morbidity and ill health consequences associated with that by educating parents about nutrition and also promoting physical activity. So to give you a bit of an idea, do you want to just move the slides on there, please, Tara? So to give you a bit of an idea of the sort of campaigning activity we do, this is some information from the last campaign that we ran in partnership with schools this summer, over the summer holidays. It's the culmination, or the latest edition really, of a 5-year partnership we've had with the Walt Disney Organisation, using their brands and their territories to really bring our messages to life and engage and excite our target audiences. You can see there on the left-hand side, we partnered with the Star Wars franchise this year. It was an incredibly successful campaign. We sent out over 600,000 packs to schools around the country and had some great uptake. And the sort of video that you can see there on the left-hand side is Olympic Taekwondo champion Jade Jones doing a sort of play-along film that was hosted on our website, where the idea is it sort of teaches kids to do an activity routine in 10-minute intervals that sort of builds up to a sort of full-on sort of mini workout in a way that's really sort of fun and engaging for them, and engaging for the parents, and engaging for the teachers. So as I said, fantastic results around that, and a real sort of flavour of how we use our sort of campaigning budgets to bring issues to life. If you just want to move on to the next slide there, you can see some of the sort of scale and the reach that the Change4Life campaign has had over the last 10 years. It's literally millions. I think you can read the stats on that slide for yourself there. I hope you'll agree they're very impressive in terms of how that translates through to the digital metrics that my team is responsible for. The Change4Life website is really which all of our other coalesce. When we are actively campaigning and are on TV, that website receives in excess of 470,000 hits a month. And even when we're doing absolutely nothing, as we are at the moment, that website still has a run rate of about 147,000 hits per month. So I guess really my point in showing you this is to sort of hopefully get you excited about the scale of the opportunity and the scale of the audience that you guys could reach by partnering with us in this initiative, if it takes off in the way that we hope that it will. So moving on to the next slide, please. At the moment, we are really pleased and proud to be in the kind of live beta with the Open Data Institute and IMIN. So this is a screen grab of an activity finder that we built that is currently live on the Change4Life site. I think I've got to be honest with you and say that that comes with a few caveats. It's live on the Change4Life site. I've deliberately buried it quite deeply within the architecture at the moment, because this is a proof of concept for me to prove that the technology works. It's been live since September. We've seen uptake around that in terms of traffic in the low hundreds. That's pretty much as I would expect without putting any resource or traffic driving behind it. And it's essentially what that's there to do is two things. The first of all is to prove that the technology works and that users can successfully navigate those journeys and find information in their local areas when they interact with the tool. And I think objective achieved. It's certainly performing in the way that I expected. And the second thing really, and the purpose of me speaking to you on this call today, is to emphasise Public Health England's commitment to promoting this technology and being at the vanguard of delivering this sort of open data because of the benefits that we really believe that it can bring. Next slide, please. So I think in terms of how I would expect that our journey together to develop really is my big ask, and the reason that I'm holding off on going high, wide and handsome with this beta test and taking that into live at the moment, is what we really need your support to do is build out the number of providers that are currently partnering with us and providing their data through that Open Activity Finder, because what I really want at the moment is a product that will deliver full geographical coverage across the whole of England. At the moment, the coverage is pretty good in London and the South East, as you'd expect. That's where the population is centred, so that's certainly where a lot of leisure operators are centred. But what I would really like to do before I'm confident putting budgets and national scale behind the product is broaden that coverage out, particularly around areas in the north of the country. I think I've got a particular objective to work with people around the Manchester and Greater Manchester area, because that feels like an area where our agendas are aligned with what local authorities are doing in that space. Similarly, there's a whole big opportunity with Birmingham, the East and West Midlands around the Commonwealth Games, which are upcoming. And I'm also very keen to hear from you guys where else you think there might be pockets of opportunity where there's a real local groundswell of support for this sort of work, and also a good network of provision. And in terms of the sort of activities that we're really keen and excited to hear about for Change4Life, the things that need to be relevant for children and young families, really. So leisure providers like yourselves, and hopefully we've got a few of you on the call today, are absolutely in the sweet spot, because you provide a whole range of things that people can choose from, which we know from our research parents love, particularly during school holidays. But I also just want to include this last slide to talk about some of the future opportunities we have for promoting things. So Change4Life is by no means Public Health England's only campaigning brand. We also do a whole range of offers for adults. So one of our biggest brands around adult health, targets people in the 40 to 60-year-old age bracket. And our flagship product in that space is a mobile app called Couch to 5K. So Couch to 5K has been going for about the last 3 years now. It has over 1.3 million users so far, and it's a beginners running program that coaches people to run continuously for half an hour in just 9 weeks. Since we launched, we've had over 1.9 million completed runs, which is fantastic. And the real big achievement there really is you can see the star ratings in App Store and on Google Play. So with an excess of 60,000 reviews on Google Play, that is now a very stable, very good product that people genuinely love. And one of the most satisfying things about my job currently is looking online in communities like the NHS's Health Unlocked forums, where you can see how much people really love this product and love interacting with it, and have created their own online communities around it to support one another. There is a current conversation that I'm having with the Open Data Institute about how we can build the Open Activity Finder into the customer journey for Couch to 5K, so that it's served as a sort of opportunity for people that complete the 9-week program to go and take on further activities, either indoor or outdoors in their local area, and continue that journey towards being healthier through being more active. And I guess my sort of finishing note in saying that is that if you guys are willing and able to kind of help us along on this journey and open up your data as Richard has described, add what you're doing to the Finder, build out that national coverage, there are an awful lot of opportunities and a real willingness on Public Health England's part to put real investment behind promoting that and making those services accessible to a very large audience. And I mean, the final note, next slide please, that I'll just sort of finish with, is to give you a flavour of some of the organisations that have already joined us and are already sharing their data with us through the beta product that's on the Change4Life website at the moment. And you can see there's a really pleasing mix of organisations from the public and the private sector. So really, I feel like hopefully an offer for everybody, and something that we're very pleased and proud to be part of, and hopefully something that you guys will join us in bringing and taking forward, because I think the benefits for health could be tangible, and I really believe there's a commercial opportunity there as well. That's all I have to say. Happy to answer questions towards the end, and I think now I'll hand you over to Nish. Thank you.
Thanks, Alistair. That was excellent. I think everyone can agree that was really interesting and useful to hear. So yes, if anyone does have any questions, just a nice little reminder here as well. If you go on to Slido, and the code to ask questions is D198. So please feel free to add any questions there. You can add them as we're going through, and we will go through all of those at the end. And now on to Nish.
Thanks, Tara. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I think sod's law on a Friday, some builders have started drilling right outside the window. Just 2 minutes ago. So do shout if that gets in the way of what I'm saying. Yes, fantastic content there from Alistair. Quite a hard one to follow. I think he phrased it really, really well. My role here, very quickly, is to talk about some of those other opportunities that exist. Once you open up your data, And as Richard said at the beginning, it's open, different campaigns, organizations can come and use that data in different products to get different people active. And Public Health England's campaigns are examples of demographic-specific opportunities. But there's also sport-specific opportunities that exist, especially amongst the NGBs. So Badminton England have a product that they're using to help direct their users and their audience towards different badminton products, especially no strings badminton, one of their franchise opportunities. EMD, you might have seen recently in the press, are releasing their Class Finder product in the new year. So that's taking subsets of that open data, just like Public Health England's doing for parents and kids for Change4Life, but on a sports basis. You also have a number of local authorities who are now looking to use open data within their various wellbeing services and sports services. Some examples are Croydon, Newcastle City Council, Westminster. So they're looking at the stuff within their borough and saying, oh, how do we help our residents find out what's going on in the local centres and the local parks? So another more local use case there for the open data. And as well as lots of different startups as well, doing interesting things. They may not all work, but the idea is once the data is open, they can start experimenting, trying out new behavioral changing mechanisms, different reward mechanisms, gamification, whatever it is, whatever the consumers are doing. Next, these startups are doing exciting things to help reach those using the open data. And I think in the future, you'll have more publicly funded and privately funded campaigns coming through that use open data. I think Sport England are excited to look at how This Girl Can next year can use open data in various calls to action through their very successful campaigns. And you've also got organizations like Ordnance Survey and BBC also looking at those kind of use cases. So I think my vision here is that there's so many opportunities. Public Health England is one that is live and exciting and very tangible. But also once you open your data, that data can keep being reused in lots and lots of different places to reach lots more audiences. And likewise, I'll happily answer questions on some of those opportunities at the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Nish. Again, that's really useful. And it's obviously, I think, quite exciting for everyone to hear about the potential opportunities that are coming up, hopefully in the near future, as we get more data opened up. So just to finish off on the presentation, Richard, if you could just go through sort of the next steps for anyone who's interested in this and wants to get involved.
So hopefully we've piqued your interest about releasing your data. The next question then would be, actually, how do you make that happen? What do you need to do in order to get your data into something like Change4Life? Because most of the people on the call are leisure operators, we've split the guidance into 3 categories. So if you're a Legend customer, the next step would be to speak to your account manager. They're releasing their kind of first version of the OpenActive feed into their core product, and that's arriving in early December. So it should be a fairly straightforward, or it will be a fairly straightforward kind of tick box exercise to enable that feature in the Legend product. And we'd urge you to speak to your account manager about the best way to go about doing that. For Gladstone customers, so Gladstone are also working on this quite actively at the moment. They have an installation day on the 11th of December, which has been set aside for hosted customers. So if you're on the hosted version of Gladstone, you can take part in that installation day on the 11th of December for a small admin fee. So reach out to your account manager or let us know, and we can try and get you into that day. Places are limited, so if you want to take part in that, we'd urge you to move quite quickly. If you're not on the hosted platform, if you're an on-premises Gladstone customer, you can still make your data available. It's a slightly different process, and you can sign up for a scheduled installation day. And again, speak to your account manager about getting one of those scheduled in. So if you're an XN customer, or you've got a different kind of leisure management system, what we'd urge you to do is ask that system provider to make this a priority, just as Legend have and just as Gladstone have. What we've put together is a kind of requirements document. There's a link there which we're happy to share around to people after the call. But if you go to bit.ly/OA requirements, you'll find a document that sets out what you need to ask your booking system to do. So it sets out the requirements for making your data available, what that actually means in practice, the way in which they need to build the APIs and all that kind of technical detail. That's been quite useful in various conversations that we've had with various parties to try and make this happen. If you're in if the first, second, or third category, so whichever system you use, whichever route you're going down, please let us know. Please keep us in the loop so that we can help. The best way to do that is to contact us at hello@openactive.io. The role of the Open Data Institute in a lot of this is kind of facilitating this change and making sure that, that wherever conversations are happening, it's aligned as much as possible. So yeah, please keep us in the loop, and we'll do what we can to help facilitate.
Great, thanks, Richard. So if we just move on. Oops. Sorry, just moving on to the next slide. So we'll move on to questions now. So you've got on the slides here, you can see, go to Slido. The code to ask any questions is D198. So I'm going to crack on with the questions, but please keep asking questions as we go through if there's anything else you'd like to ask. So first question that we've got in there, which I think is a question for Alistair. How do you choose which of our activities, so the ledger operators, their activities are taken into the activity finder? How do you pick which activities go into that?
Okay, so I think I might have to sort of defer to Ness to this one in a second for the technical details, but my understanding of it is we take all of the activities that you guys indicate are relevant for the criteria that we specify, which are that they have to be suitable for children between the age 5 to 11, and that's the sort of filter that we apply for Change4Life. We are also discussing whether or not we broaden that out to child-friendly activities, so as in classes for parents where they can bring their kids along, but at the moment that's the criteria. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Nish, was there anything you wanted to add to that, or you think that's enough detail?
Yeah, that was definitely correct. If detail's helpful, the way it works at the moment is where there are minimum, maximum age data included in the open data, then we're able to use that to indicate a suitable age range for the class. Sometimes there's not, and in that case, we search the sessions for words like junior, family-friendly, kid-friendly, and it's quite a manual process. But I think this is the evolution of OpenActive, which is starting with, well, let's get some open data out there and do some interesting stuff with it. And then as we get these use cases, then we can start looking at things like how to improve the data over time to better serve the users that are seeing that data.
I think it's also worth noting, just before we move off that question, although those filters for the Change4Life activity finder are applicable, I mentioned the Couch to 5K product, which is a sort of much more catch-all offer and is targeted at adults. And it's in the current roadmap for my development team to integrate that functionality into the existing mobile app by our Q4 this year, so around March 2019. So I think very much open to you guys sharing data with us, even if it's not directly relevant to Change4Life at this time. We will find opportunities to promote good opportunities.
Great, thanks there. So I've got a couple of questions that both relate to Legend customers, Legend users. So the first, which I'm going to combine as one question for Richard. The first one is, as a Legend customer, the data feed will be available immediately in the 1808 release next week. Assuming that the customers tick the box, will Public Health England look to use this immediately? And this is just to combine this with a question from Chris at Serco, who's just made the point that if you activate, as a Legend customer, if you activate this sort of tick box today, well, in the next week or so, all of your sessions will appear online, including any sort of private sessions that you have configured. Richard, would you be all right to tackle those two questions together?
Yeah, so I guess to take the second point first, in the 1808 release, this is the first iteration of the OpenActive feed. that Legend will be releasing, and we're aware that there's a potential issue with that release that might impact some of the customers, which is why the guidance at the moment is to speak to your account manager just to make sure that it's right for you to enable it. It might not be right for everybody at this point in time, and we're working closely with Legend at the moment to I guess get a list of the customers where it's going to work fine for in that first release. On the second point, this so again, this might be a question that Alistair and Nish would like to comment on. So very soon after that, the data that a Legend customer releases through 1808, the 1808 release, we would like to get that into Change4Life as quickly as possible. Nish, is there anything you want to add, or Alistair, is there anything you'd like to add to
that? Just from a technical point of view, it will, as long as there's kids' activities included in that open data feed, then yes, that will, as quickly as possible, be published onto the Change4Life activity finder.
And I guess our point of view on that is just, the more data, the better. And as soon as you're able to provide it, we'll get it up as soon as possible.
Great, thanks, guys. Question from A. Smith. We haven't yet ticked the box, but apps such as Hoop lift info direct from our website, and this can easily become out of date. Will OpenActive solve this? Another question, I think, for Richard to start things off.
I guess the simple answer is yes, it should fix this. So the feed, when you publish your data through the OpenActive standards, so, through your leisure management system provider, when you publish data from that system, the data is real time. So when you cancel a session, that will be updated in your feed, or if you change the time of a session or the location, that will be updated in your feed, and that update should cascade through to any third parties that are using that data. So if Hoop, for example, are using that data, it should automatically be updated in their app. We won't solve everybody who's kind of scraping data. We won't get them to stop scraping data immediately. So there'll be a kind of gradual change over time as more and more people switch from taking that route to using a live feed. But we think that the benefit of using a real-time feed is pretty clear. Anybody wants to provide accurate information to their customers, so why would you not use a real-time feed versus something that's static and goes out of date?
Yeah, so hopefully over time this will actually help to solve the issue with Hoop and other apps like that, who at the moment, I guess it's a bit of a compromise that they're scraping the data from the website, which is obviously static, and they're not aware if there are any updates made to that. So as long as everyone's sort of embracing the same initiative, this should hopefully make things easier for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Next question. Just notice a number of the questions are anonymous. Obviously, if you're feeling shy, please feel free to keep them anonymous. But it is useful and interesting for us if we know who's asking the questions, and we can also follow up with you guys afterwards if it's appropriate. But just next question: will aggregators be able to book out facilities? Operators will have payment, but it would appear empty, meaning poor customer satisfaction, I think they mean, if it didn't sell the space. Who'd like to take that question?
So,
we talked about booking so much today.
So at the moment, really what we're asking you to do in the first instance is just to make the data about the opportunities available, which is that's kind of the data flows in one direction there, right? It's open data that people can look at and they can list in their app, but not necessarily book it. We know that booking is an important thing for lots of different organizations, particularly third parties and startups that are wanting to create revenue off this. So booking will be something that we're actively working on a specification to make booking work as seamlessly as possible and in as fair a way as possible. And we think that the way in which booking will kind of work over time is that the activity provider ultimately will have control over who is able to book their activities or not. So if you as a leisure operator, you'll be able to pick and choose which third parties you would like to be able to book your activities, book your sessions. So if there's a particular third party that you're not comfortable with, you don't need to allow them to. You can prevent them from booking your activities, but you can work with those that you prefer. So hopefully that answers the question. I'm not sure about the second half. So if I haven't answered the second half of your question clearly enough, please add a supplementary question. Nish or Alistair, is there anything you'd like to add on booking, either from a kind of wider point of view or from a Change4Life point of view?
I mean, I think, as you say, Richard, we're not offering booking at the moment. It is what we sort of tested this and run this as a proof of concept. We're basically just allowing people to see the information. So it's not an issue that's live at the moment. And I think we're certainly open to having conversations with providers about how and when we introduce that booking functionality. So we could do it in a scaled way or in a very controlled way and make sure that any of those sorts of concerns are addressed before we sort of enforce it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. So the next question we've got in there, which I think if I've interpreted this correctly, is a common question that we get, which is perhaps a bit of a misunderstanding, is there any plans for all activities via open data to appear on an app? And I'm going to pick on Richard again to start the answer off for that one.
So there have obviously been attempts in the past to build a kind of single monolithic app that has all activities in it. It will be possible to create that kind of app still with open data that gets published. But the real advantage of an open data approach rather than a kind of central database that very few people can access, rather than that kind of approach, is that it opens up the possibility to anybody who wants to use that data, anybody who wants to put those opportunities in front of a customer. So we don't expect there to be one single app that's going to dominate everything. We think there's going to be a range of different types of service that cater to different individuals, because physical activity is one of those things that
it's not one size fits all.
It's not one size fits all, exactly. Thanks, Tara. So to give some examples of the kinds of things that we're starting to see happen, that there's tools like areas like social prescribing, where actually the thing you need to do to help that patient or that customer become physically active is completely different to the type of aggregator that appeals to somebody who's already into fitness. That kind of range of different thing can appear because the data is open and people can use it in different ways. And we think there's going to be many more different sort of examples or use cases for this data that are going to appear over time.
Great. Another anonymous. Everyone's feeling a bit shy today. Is Change4Life using the I'm in activities search facility? Do they have any plans to go directly to the vendors for that information? Question for you, Alistair.
So I think basically we don't have any plans to go direct to vendors at the moment. Again, it's a really sort of quickly developing space. I think once we can achieve some sort of national coverage, we're really open to having conversations about the best way to make that data available to our end users. So I think it's right to say that we've been leading the charge with IMIN and we're big supporters of theirs. I don't think that's necessarily the only model that we would ever consider. And so I think really open to having conversations. I hope that's not treading on anybody's toes too much there, Nish, but yeah.
No, I think that's absolutely well put. Maybe it's worth me clarifying our role here a little bit more. I think if, for those who aren't familiar with IMIN, you can almost think of us as technical infrastructure that people use when it makes sense for them to use it. So for Public Health England to go directly to vendors, they would have to essentially develop a technical solution to pull in all the different open data and add the tags and do the filtering, which they're very welcome to do because all the data is open. IMIN provides a service that is a paid for service that allows them to do that as a dedicated solution. But because we build it on top of open data, no one's contractually obliged to use IMIN service. We don't have exclusivity over the data in the same way that no one else does because it's open. So all we're trying to do is make the barriers lower for any innovators or app builders or platforms to start using that data in interesting ways. Our view is if we spend more energy on focusing on the end user and thinking of ways to get them active and less potentially on the integration challenges, then we might move further as a sector to getting more people active. But it doesn't mean at any point in the future that Public Health England or anyone else that uses the IMIN service could work in different ways, as Alistair suggested.
And just to add to that from a kind of wider open data perspective, the role that I'm in play, the kind of middleware service provider, that's a role that we've seen in other sectors where open data is being published by a range of different organizations, and the challenge of making that easier for consumer-facing third parties to use. That's been solved by similar organizations in the past. So to look at transport, for example, where lots of timetable information has been released about bus and bus location and all that kind of information. There are middleware service providers that play the same role as I'm in transport, where they take those various feeds, they combine them, they integrate them, and they make it easier for people to use them. So it's a function that we've seen in elsewhere in the kind of open data world.
Great, thanks everyone for all contributing to that question. The next question, I'm actually going to reach out. We've got Nick Evans on the call as well. So Nick, hopefully you're happy to chip in on this. We've got a question that's come in. How will you overcome the mass of different naming conventions and costs? And Nick, I know this is your area of expertise, so I'll let you come in on this if you can.
Sure, no worries. So yeah, this is a really great question, and something that I think we've recognised from the beginning as being a challenge that OpenActive needs to overcome to reach scale. We currently have a list of over 500 categorised and hierarchical categorised activities, which include half of which is exercise, move, dance. So Zumba, Zumba Gold, all the various types of dance, fitness, and that is actually a collaborative approach that we're taking with that. So what we're doing is we're actually looking for people to get involved in that process, to contribute to the activities. A lot of NGBs, the national governing bodies, are the main targets for that. So, for example, British Cycling this week has restructured the cycling part of the list, and Exercise Move Dance Partnership have taken a very active role in the Exercise Move Dance, which I know covers a lot of the activities for relevant people on this call. So they are monthly updating that with the latest brands and changes to that. And the way that links in with your activities is that within Legend, not unfortunately in the first release, but I believe coming up in one of the later releases, one or two after this, there's a drop-down box against your activities, which you can configure. So basically, you already have a list of activities that you maintain, of course, which is for all of your sites. Or you can put a description against those, and you can have classes against those. So against each of those activities, you'll be able to, with a drop-down, select which of the master list, if you like, the 500 community-owned definitive list is related to each of those. And Gladstone is going to have a very similar thing as well. So within Gladstone, you'll be able to, against each of the activities that you have, select from a drop-down to choose which of those is related. And this will help you as well in terms of making sure that if you're integrating this information into your own websites, that you can make use of the same standards. So that's activities with costs. It's quite straightforward with the costs. There's non-member pricing. That's the pricing that's advertised. We don't advertise member pricing through any feeds at the moment. So it's adult, junior, senior, or concession are the prices that are advertised, and they are just as a per activity price. And so that's as simple as it is.
Great, thanks for that, Nick. So I think just to make sure that it's clear for everyone, everyone has their own ways of naming their activities, and a lot of providers take pride in giving their activities sort of different and innovative names, and no one is suggesting that you have to change that. It will be more about linking those sort of uniquely named activities up to a standardized list of activity names, so that people can categorize them on different activity finders and publicly. So next question we have from A. Smith. Is there a list of third parties like Change4Life using the open access data?
So shall I take this one? So we don't have a kind of formal list of all the third parties and all the campaigns that are currently using open data. That's something that I think we'd like to make more visible, certainly in the new year. Change4Life is the biggest we have at the moment. The next big one that we're working with Sport England on is This Girl Can. So we're expecting that at some point fairly early in the new year, maybe around springtime, Fiscal Can will be the next big campaign that's using open data.
And I think this links nicely with the next question down, where someone's asked, could you share a list of all organisations that have shared data thus far, which we have got a list. Yes,
so there's a, I did say that you're not putting data into a centralised database. What we have done, however, is create a kind of a catalogue page, a status page of all the feeds that are currently available. So if you go to status.openactive.io, so that's status.openactive.io, you'll see a list of all the different publishers that have released data so far, and in there you've got a mix of leisure operators who've published data, national governing bodies. There are also some booking systems in there too that have published a kind of single API for their booking system. So that's just literally a list of the data that's been published. The data actually isn't hosted in that page at all. When you click on those links, it takes you to each of those publishers' own
It's a directory of links.
It's a directory of links,
yeah.
Exactly.
And we will make sure that that link is shared out. When we share the slides out at the end of this, I will make sure that that link is included in those slides so that everyone has got access to that if they haven't caught that on the call already. Question from Stephen at GLL. Is Change4Life looking to enable booking capability for activities via their website? Alison?
So not right now. It's something that I see as a natural evolution of this service and something that I'm really keen to factor into the roadmap for the next financial year. The point I keep coming back to though is I need national coverage before I can sell that to my stakeholders and also make sure I'm delivering a good experience for our sort of customers, if you like. So I guess the first step, if that's something that providers would like, would be to share the data that you have at the moment, help us build out that national coverage on the current beta product, and then it's I'm really happy to commit to building that booking function in at a later date.
Great, thank you. Next question we have from Russell. I'm not sure who wants to take this one. Can facilities be listed to promote what is available with a centre or outdoor space, or are the tools just to promote activities within facilities?
Nick, do you want to take that one, or do you want me to take that one?
I don't mind. I guess is the question. I can guess I can give a stab at the start of it. So the available activities and facilities. So you both Legend and Gladstone are publishing squash courts and badminton courts, and the slot and the timetable of those in the available spaces, as well as classes, and so they're both in there. And the other aspect of this is, of course, if there are activity providers near your facilities or operating out of your facilities who are not using Legend and Gladstone, maybe third parties that operate a cycling group that meets in your centre, or a running group that meets nearby, which we've seen with the data from England Athletics or the data from British Cycling. Those data providers will be making data available. They might be referencing your site as a starting point for that activity to take place. But of course, they'll be publishing that separately to yourselves. And you can, if you want to bring that information in, as a data user, as an operator, you can bring that in and make that available to your own customers through your website as a separate conversation. But yeah, that might help.
The other thing to add, which may not be so relevant to your question, Russell, but we're also looking to potentially widen the scope of what's covered in OpenActive at some point next year to include things like routes. So where there's not necessarily a defined start time, but there's a route that is a type of opportunity, right? That's something that we might look to standardise a bit more next year, depending on the needs of the community and whether that's something people actually want.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good to sort of reiterate this is a growing and developing initiative. And we're not sort of the final endpoint. I'm not sure if there will be a final endpoint. It is constantly evolving, but it's evolving in line with what people are asking for and linked to demand and needs in the sector. And we've got one more question here. We've got 7 minutes left, so if anyone wants to slot in any last minute questions, please do so now. Last question that we've got on the list at the moment, which I think is sort of a different question between opening up opportunities data and booking. It might be a little bit confused. Can operators choose which apps or tools they work with, and how is this managed?
So if we split out the open data, the release of open data firstly, and then booking as a separate thing. So when you make your data, your timetables available as open data, so you set up that feed that lists your sessions, your classes, your timetables. What we're asking people to do is attach an open license to that data, and that open license says that anybody can access, use, and share it. So people don't need to ask you permission to use that information, because you're giving them that permission through that license. So in that sense, you can't stop people from using that information and listing that information. But that's low risk anyway, because that information is usually information that's already on your website, so it's already in the public domain. Really, all you're doing here is making it just a bit easier for people to use, because it's already in the public domain. Somebody who really wants to use that data, really wants to promote or take your timetables, they can do that anyway, just through slightly more challenging means. What you will have control over is the third parties that can book your activities. So as soon as there's a kind of commercial aspect to what's happening, then you will have control over who can do that.
Thanks, Richard. And someone who's chosen to remain anonymous with this question, could you summarise some of the main reasons for operators not to do this? Have any operators flat out said no to something like this, and why?
Oh, that's a good question.
I would make the point that people sometimes say no at the beginning because they don't understand it. Mm-hmm. And obviously with booking, there are more commercial implications which people definitely need to consider before and if they say yes. But would you say there are any reasons operators shouldn't open up their opportunity data? Yeah, so perhaps if I get us started, Nish, if there's anything you want to chip in, then please do so. I think so. We've been speaking to a lot of operators particularly in the last few weeks, to get them excited about Change4Life, and that actually we think the resistance or the concerns that operators have tend to be pretty low at this point, particularly for the release of open data, because it's information that's already in the public domain. I think that where people have said a flat out no over the last couple of years, it's either because it's challenging from a technical perspective, so it's just not very easy for them to do it kind of cost wise, and we think that that's changing now with Legend and Gladstone coming on board. And the other one, I guess, some people have concerns about what the commercial models might be, and I think our message to operators would be, firstly, you'll have control over who can book on your activities, but secondly, embrace that innovation, because it's probably going to happen anyway, and actually the earlier you get involved, the more you can control it, the more you can shape it, and the more we can create something that actually works for both sides of the ecosystem. Nish, is there anything that you'd like to add to that?
No, I think you summarised it well. I think the main challenges are normally technical, and then I think the key words I've heard are control and visibility. Who's doing what with my data? And so, like you've been saying, I think there's the open data first stage is a relatively simple step once it's separated from who's going to have access to booking or not. Now, that's not always a commercial discussion. For example, Public Health England, if they're looking at booking, they might not have a commercial angle on that. That's to be decided. But they're a public health body. They're not looking necessarily to make revenue. Obviously to be decided. But those two things don't always go hand in hand. So yeah, normally it's a technical understanding first, and then making sure that at every step the operator is fully in control and can fully see what's happening with their more commercially sensitive data.
Great, thanks, Nish. So final point, it's not a question, but just to show some appreciation, Stephen from GLL has just wanted to point out that GLL are committed to opening up their data. So thank you for that statement of commitment there, Stephen. We're going to wrap things up now. So if anyone has any other questions that they didn't manage to send across to us yet, please let us know if you email the email address hello@openactive.io, and we will get back to you. You can either send us an email for us to reply by email, or if you want to give us a number and we'll give you a call to have a chat, please let us know. We will share the slides at the end of this for everyone to see, and we will sort of tidy up the recording and make that available for everyone as well. So if there's anything that you missed today or any questions that you didn't get to ask, please let us know. If you've got questions for Nish or Alistair, you can channel those through us as well. So just to finish things off, I'd like to thank Alistair and Nish and Richard for presenting today and providing lots of information. Also a shout out to Nick for chipping in on some of those questions, and thank you for everyone for joining us today. I hope you found it useful and interesting. And yeah, if you'd like to follow up on any of those points, please let us know.